The blue economy presents a huge untapped opportunity for Africa. In general, among SDGs, I think is the SDG that has the least funding, and part of the issue actually is the knowledge and the data. So part of what constrains attracting the financing is that we don't have sufficient data to do that, and this is an area that we really need to develop, but also to have engagements of scientists to establish a established link between the blue economy and climate change so that it can present a clear key performance indicators that can be used then to track performance and to monitor, especially as part of blue bonds issuances and so on. So that's really key. And then, of course, we had some African countries that have managed to actually tap the potential of blue bonds, such as Seychelles, even though the amount was small, but it was very catalytic in terms of issuing that bond. And it would be very important to really focus on issues of knowledge, monitoring systems and science, in addition to having early discussions with creditors on the potential and the interest on these areas, and then also catalyze other sources of funding accordingly. The African Economic Conference provides a very unique opportunity to really bring together bright young researchers from all over the continent that put together very sound academic research into the topic at discussion, which is the climate smart development in Africa, and at the same time bring together practitioners and policymakers. And having these kind of very engaging discussions with multi-stakeholder presence is key to really drive the agenda forward. We need the collaboration of everyone to make a difference and to move on that agenda. So it's a very important way of really energizing that debate and taking it from the evidence-based to action and policy making. Africa as a region contributes the least to global emissions, contributes only 3% of global emissions, even though it has 17% of the world population. At the same time, Africa suffers the most in terms of the brunt of the impact of climate change. So we have 9 out of the 10 global most vulnerable countries are African countries. And African countries bear the cost of around 5% of GDP a year in terms of implications of climate change. So moving forward, of course, there is a need for countries that have not been part of creating that problem to be properly compensated for the losses and damages that they have been exposed to. And this is why the establishment of the Loss and Damage Fund at Sharm el-Sheikh in COP27 was a very historic and welcome step forward to establish a mechanism for countries to actually get compensated. This is a first step. We still need to get the funding in that fund and money toward funding this mechanism, and also to define the specifics of how the funding and the uses of the fund. But this is a very important step forward. But also there is a need for the continent to be properly compensated for being a part of the solution, and a crucial one. And this will come through really developing the carbon credit markets, which actually ECA is currently working on helping establishing a regional carbon credit market in the Congo Basin, and in terms also of harmonizing protocols. So having a fair carbon credit will be key, because it can really unleash huge financing sources for the continent to then actually be able to deal with the mitigation and adaptation needs. So that's also another part of the solution. And of course, we need to make sure, as African countries have been saying during the last COP, that countries that made pledges honor these pledges. So it will be very important as an international community to uphold these promises and pledges.